Okay, guys, welcome everyone. Welcome to the National Federation of Families virtual conference. We have a tremendous conference planned for you, and we are so excited that you chose to be with us for this jam-packed event. Of course, we all wish we were in person. We said that last year. Unfortunately, we're saying it again this year. But Lachelle, let's do a slide with some warm hugs, please. So virtual hugs to everyone. If you see yourself here, you were with us at our last live face-to-face conference. These are warm memories, and we are hoping that we will get to do this again next year. But for today and for the next couple of days, let's all visit here and just imagine and remember what it's like to be together. Now, I would like to do something. I want to see how everybody's doing, because some of you I've never had the opportunity to meet, and I'm so interested in meeting you. Also, some of you I have known for quite a while, and I haven't talked to you. So we want to know how you're doing. So we're going to do something to really learn. We're going to collect a little bit of data here. Now, you have to work with us. This is important. So Lachelle, can you get us started? Lachelle, we have lost our slide.
I am pulling it up now.
Thank you, dear.
Bones Day or No Bones Day refers to a series of videos in which TikToker John Graz picks his pug Noodle up from bed in the morning and then puts him down to see if he'll stand up or flop back into bed. If Noodle stands, it is Bones Day, which is considered to be good luck. If Noodle flops and decides to act as if his bones don't exist, this denotes a No Bones Day, which is a sign of bad luck. The first Bones Day / No Bones Day video was posted on August 13th, 2021.
You are here just in time for another round of No Bones, which is a game where we find out if Noodle has bones this morning or not.
A TikTok posted on September 14th marked a particularly important occasion. Noodle maintained a sitting position when placed on the ground, indicating a Bones Day and good fortune for all. The Bones Day videos grew significantly prominent in October 2021, with other TikTokers beginning to reference the tradition. The term Bones Day and No Bones Day are used by various content creators to indicate a good day or a bad day.
Oh my. So, as you can imagine, what we want to know is, are you having a Bones Day where we're ready to shout out and rock and roll? Or are you having a No Bones Day? And we will be a little extra gentle with you. So come on, guys, here's the poll. Let's do it. Let us know. Bones or no bones? The poll is moving. We're looking good. We need more people to participate. Come on, everybody. We don't have everybody yet. Let's participate. We need this data, important data. All right. I believe our bones have won by a landslide. So a Bones Day is in effect. We're going to have a great day. We are going to rock and roll. We are going to be together. We're going to inspire each other. Thank you so much for being a part of the poll. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed Noodle the Pod. So let's move forward. First, I want to thank our board of directors. This is the greatest board of directors I've ever worked with. And I want to acknowledge just what amazing people they are and how supportive they are of the work of the Federation, of this conference, of me as the executive director. This is a tremendous group to work with. I have another tremendous group I want to mention though before we move on, and that's my staff who have put together this conference, and I hope you are going to just enjoy every minute of it. First of all, Kelsey Engelbrock, who quarterbacks our conference just like a pro. She's amazing. She is responsible for much of what you will see over the next few days. Leanne Sherman is the person you talk to in the office. She answers your questions. She helps you get registered, and she always does it with a smile. Gail Cormier was in charge of yesterday's pre-conference, and if you were there, you know how amazing that was. Michelle Covington, she is a part of everything we do. And she will be doing a hugely important job for us in just a few minutes. She will be manning the chat for our keynote. Lachelle Freeman is newer to us. You may not have had a chance to meet her. She is behind the scenes here. She is working my slides. She is tremendous to work with. I want you to have a chance to get to know her. And our newest staff person is Kelly McNabb. Kelly has joined us just recently, and she is helping also with the logistics of the conference, and we are so happy to have her with us. So a great shout out to all of our staff. Thank you so very much. Next slide. I also want to mention our sponsors for this year. We have a tremendous group of sponsors. We have sponsors at every level. We have sponsors who have been with us for years and years and are just enduring relationships. And we have new sponsors, which is always exciting. So a shout out to all of our sponsors. Thank you so much for your support. And now our exhibitors. If you go to our exhibit hall, you will find 19 different exhibitors for this year's conference. They want you to visit them. They would love to see you in their booths. And there are some games that are involved with that. So check that out. Please visit all of our sponsors. So just a quick word about a couple of things we've been working on this year. As many of you know, we have a COVID-19 project where we have been working with a variety of partners to ensure that there's support for families to get their vaccines. And now we will be working with those same families to support them in getting vaccines for their youngest children. Our next project is our Technical Assistance Center. This was SAMHSA's first National Family Support Technical Assistance Center. We've had a wonderful first year, and we can promise you we will have an amazing year too. We've just gotten into it, but it's going to be great. Please visit the exhibitor booths for both of these projects to learn more about them. And speaking of the exhibitor booths, there are conference games. You guys need to find out how to play these games. There's money on the table. You want to be a part of this. So definitely pay attention. Go into Hoover and hit win a prize, and you'll learn more about it. And finally, follow us on social media. If you aren't following us currently, here are our various addresses. Please join us. It's a great way to stay in touch with us. And please, this afternoon at 5 o'clock, stay with us for our conference awards. We will be doing our national awards. It's a wonderful time to recognize some very, very outstanding people. So please be with us then. And finally, Next year, guys, next year, please, please start thinking about this. This makes it a Bones Day for everybody. Plan to join us in person in Oklahoma City. I can't wait. I've never been to Oklahoma City, but I understand there's line dancing there and I'm loving it. So please make plans to be with us next year. We'll get the dates to you very soon so you can get those on your calendars, and we will all be together. So let's plan on just a tremendous reunion in Oklahoma City. And now we are going to begin our keynote. This keynote is going to be amazing. It's something different than anything we have done before. We typically have a speaker who comes and talks to us. We decided we wanted to do something different this year. And we asked 3 of our executive directors if they would be willing to spend a few minutes sharing their stories about their children and their journey with those children. So I want to introduce you to Sandy Bumpus, who's the Executive Director of the Oregon Family Support Network, Tavo Sastre, who is the Executive Director of Reach Family Services, which is in Arizona, and Euphemia Strawn, who is the Executive Director of Families on the Move of New York City. Now, I'm going to suggest to you for best view on this, if you look up in the right corner of your screen, you see it says view. If you click on side-by-side speaker, that will give you a very intimate view of our folks as we talk. And we can actually take that slide down, Lachelle, because we are going to be talking today. So our topic is Parent Caregiver Panel, Family Mental Health and Substance Use Needs Across the Lifespan. Now, as we are going through this, we're going to invite you to please put your questions, your comments, anything that you want to share with the panel in the chat. That chat is going to be monitored. And at the end of our presentation, we will have time for Q&A, so we will get to those questions. So welcome, Sandy, Tavo, and Euphemia. We're so happy to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Each of you were kind enough to share your stories, to write out your stories and share those, and we do have those available. But now we're just going to take some time and relax and enjoy this time together. And we're going to ask each of you to simply share your stories about your journey as you wish to. So, Tavo, can we start with you?
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me? Good morning. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here. I was thinking that 28 years ago, I decided to come to United States. And the reason that I came here is because I heard about the American dream. At that point, I didn't know too much how it looks like American dream, but I remember that I promised myself 3 things. I said, I'm going to learn English. The second thing I said, I'm gonna make a lot of money. And the third thing I said, I'm gonna go back in only 1 year. And as you notice, probably right now, I don't speak that much English and I have not made that much money and I'm still here, but I'm blessed. And I would like to share with all of you a little bit of my journey that I've been in US in the last 27 years. So my name is Tavo Sastre, and when I came to US, I was 21 years old. And of course, I did not speak English. I didn't have no job. I didn't have a house. I didn't have no friends. I didn't have really not too much. But I have the love and the support of my three sisters. And also I got the dream that I can really work with people and make a difference in people's life. Is what really I wanted. My first job was cleaning a restaurant at 21. And until today, I'm extremely proud of that. However, when I choose to leave my family, my culture, my friends, and everything in Mexico City, I knew that I want to do that because I want bigger things and better things in my life. So I pushed myself to learn English, and I pushed myself to start getting involved in the community. And I volunteered in different places. And 1 year later, at age 22, I got my first job. And I work in a place that we support young people that they were involved in gangs and drugs. At that age, at 22, I got married. And 3 years later, I got my first son. And 2.5 years later, I got my second boy. 1 year later, we got divorced. And my ex-wife and I, we joined the custody of our two boys. They spend 50% of the time with the mom and 50% time with me. It wasn't easy. I didn't have no idea how to be a single dad 50% of the time with a 3 and 1 year old boy. And later on, we started facing some challenges. Our second boy started developing certain behaviors that were not familiar. Little by little, until he get in the preschool, these challenges get bigger and bigger. We can see that he had a hard time to pay attention. He did not follow directions. He was not easy for him to focus. Just we didn't know how to deal with that. At that time, I did not speak English. We got conflicts in the divorce with my ex-wife. And also one of the biggest challenges that I had is that my ex-wife and I, we grew up in a Mexican culture. And that was a challenge because the stigma of anything related with mental health, it's only for crazy people. That's the way that I grew up. Today, I know that is not true, but at that time, it's like, I don't want to go ask for help. So we have a really hard time with that. And also the Mexican culture, since we were kids, we grow with the idea that when your children, they don't behave, the mom or the dad just grab a chancla, which is a sandal, and hit and discipline their kids. And I remember that chancla looks something like this. But my mom used a bigger chancla. This is a small one compared with my mom has. And we grew with 7 siblings. And I have the best mom ever. And today my mom is 84 years old, and she's one of the biggest gifts in my life. And is also one of the reasons that I'm here with all of you. And I remember that my mom used the chancla and disciplined us because we are 7, because they didn't know anything better. Not because she was a bad mom. It's just she didn't know anything better. And that's the way that we grow. But in some capacity, we didn't want to use the chancla manners to educate or discipline our boy. But I knew that something was not the way that's supposed to be. Later on, I started learning more about behavioral health. Life gave me the opportunity to start working in different agencies. And also I got the opportunity to get the credential as a life coach. Working hard with my ex-wife, we did our best. However, we didn't find any programs. We didn't find any Spanish program. We didn't have any support or guidance. Pretty much we were lost. We didn't know what to do. Later on, even though my son never got an assessment and he was never diagnosed with any type of mental challenge, we know in some capacity that he was developing some type of ADHD. Just we didn't know what to do with that. We did our best with a lot of love to raise our 2 boys. Today, Danny is 21 years old. He is one of the most amazing young men. He is lovely, he's kind, and people say that he is handsome, and he looks like me. So some of you thinking, well, he doesn't look like you, he's not that handsome, but it's the way that I see it. Also, Danny works in a high school, supporting and helping kids with special needs. He's a soccer coach, and also he's a cross-country coach. And 2 weeks ago, they won the first competition in the history of that school. I am so proud of my boy, and I just did the best that I could at that time to support him with his challenge. Later on, in October 2011, Alex was 13 years old and Danny was 10 years old, and I remarried to the love of my life. And when I get married, 2 years later, we have our first princess and my daughter, and she was everything in that moment for me. 11 months later, we got our third boy. And always I said that my son loved his sister so much that he didn't want to miss her first birthday party. Only 3 years ago, my wife begged me so much to have another baby. And then we have I have my fifth kid, and it's our little princess Zulema, that today is 2 years old. When few years later, our third boy, Jair, started to develop the same symptoms and the same challenge that my second boy. We start seeing kind of that the same thing happen again. And my fears, my frustration, everything that happened too long ago, I think that happened again. But now the things get different. The things are different because 20 years later, I got more experience. I was familiar with the behavioral health system. I knew about the school system. I knew about my rights as a parent. I got more tools, more skills, and I got the love and the support of my wife. So it wasn't the same. It was the same symptoms and the same challenges, but I feel stronger than ever. And we were ready to embrace the gift that my son Jair brings to our family. Today, Jair is 7 years old. He's such a wonderful kid. He is such a wonderful boy. He's full of love and he's full of energy.
Is it okay
Jair
to
loves
take
soccer.
video? Is that okay?
Jair loves video games, and he just won his second chess tournament in his school at age 7. So we are really happy, and I think that now I can use all the fears and all the barriers that we have 20 years ago, and now we want to support other families. We want that we can make a difference in people's lives, that they feel as lost as I felt 20 years ago. 6 years ago, in 2015, I got the invitation to become the executive director of a family-run agency in Phoenix, Arizona. At that point, we didn't have the name of the agency, we didn't have no location, we didn't have no staff member, neither families to serve. But I got a dream. I got that dream that I have 28 years ago, and I said, this is the opportunity. So I took the challenge, and I was the first employee working for Rich Family Services here in Phoenix. Then little by little, we start getting our team. And today I'm very proud that we have 7 board of directors, we have 13 staff members, and we are serving more than 60 families. A lot of our services that we do are bilingual. Is one of the missions that we have in our agency is to provide Spanish programs, because it's a lot of people here in South and West Phoenix that they don't have that support. Today, we provide mentoring programs, we provide family support partners, and we guide youth, kids, and family. It's been an honor, and it's been a great pleasure to have the honor to lead this agency with people that they trust me and people that have been supporting me for the last 6 years. Today, my dream continues. The beautiful thing is that the dream is not a dream anymore, now it is a reality. My deepest love is to continue supporting families, that we can continue supporting their families and their life. I want to use my fears. I want to use my challenge. I want to use the barriers that I have, and I want to empower other people. Today I'm blessed. Today I'm happy. And today I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to share my journey with all of you. Thank you.
Tavo, thank you so much. It is so wonderful to hear about your journey. And we will be delving into that a little more once we get through a couple of other very powerful stories. But thank you so much, and congratulations. Congratulations on so much happiness and success.
Thank you.
And thank you for going first. I know that's always tough. All right, so we are going to go to our next family member. Euphemia, I'm going to ask you if you would be next and if you would be ready to share your story.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Euphemia Strawn, the CEO of Families on the Move. And this is my story for the family mental health and substance use needs across the lifespan. As a child growing up, we had some good times and we had some challenging times. And the most impactful time was the year that I turned 6 years old, when my 6-month-old brother, who was a premature baby, passed away. And my mother had a breakdown. She couldn't handle the loss of the baby and blamed herself. My dad was a Jamaican immigrant. And in the Jamaican culture, there was not a lot of discussion about mental health and mental wellness and people being hospitalized for that situation. But as a result of my mom's hospitalization, my younger brother and sister and I were placed in foster care because they would not give my dad custody of us, I guess because he was an immigrant. And then they also said he wouldn't be able to work and take care of the children. Well, eventually my dad sponsored someone to come from Jamaica to stay at the house and take care of us. But while we were in foster care, you know, we experienced a lot of traumatic experiences, physical abuse and otherwise. And as a result, my younger brother, who was 2 at the time, developed mental health challenges because of the abuse and the trauma that was experienced. He's come a long way, and I must say that I can say today that he's good. But afterwards, my mom was hospitalized again, and I was going through some difficult times because of the trauma. So I was displaying certain types of behavior, and I was placed in a group home. My younger brother and I, we went into a group home. And again, there we were exposed to things that were very traumatic. Shortly after I got out of the group home, I met a young man, a teenager like myself. I was 15 and he was 16. We fell in love and became parents way before our time. So we had a child, a daughter, and then years later we married and had 3 additional children. We have a set of identical twin sons and a younger daughter. When the twins were 13, that's when I called him the husband, and I separated, and then a year later divorced. And this was especially difficult for my sons, who began to display delinquent behavior, acting out, getting in trouble, because not only did their father divorce me, but he divorced the children also. And they weren't used to him not being there, not being able to go to the home that they grew up in and all of those things. And as a result, one son ended up in a size 7 program for special needs, which is a program that's kept here in Staten Island. It's in a different building, a different school setting itself. He was kicked out of that school and put into a size 8, which I had never heard of anyone getting kicked out of a size 7 program, because that's supposed to be like for the most challenging children. And then his identical twin brother was in a miss too for the behaviors and, so forth. But what had started happening was that because of their behaviors, it was difficult for them to make friends. And then the friends that they started making and hanging out with were children that were also having behavioral issues, and which led to substance use of marijuana, problems going to school. And so as a result of that, I found myself running around trying to find programs to get them in for substance use. And when situations would happen, because they were familiar in the neighborhood, the first people that they come to are the ones that the police know most. And there was a situation where my son was accused of an act that he did not commit. And his corporate counsel, which is was his attorney, suggested that he take a plea, because the plea, you do a little time, you get out, but if you go the full term of the court case, you never know what can happen. My son said, "Mom, I didn't do it. I don't want to do this." And I thought that I was making the best decision for him and suggested that he take the plea. I didn't realize that that was going to be opening Pandora's box, because now every time something happened, he was a target, right? Anytime something happened, they pick him up, pick his twin brother up. And so from that opened the door for having a juvenile record. And I didn't understand the impact it would have later on. So when time moved on, every time I turned around, they were getting in trouble, then they were in gangs. So between the drug treatment programs and going to court, I was just like at my wit's end, because, when you have children going through situations, as a parent, for me, that's all I wanted to talk about. Because at work, you don't want to bring your business to the job, even though the job I had at the time was working with families that had children with special needs and that they were going through stuff. But when I was at work, I had to put on this brave, demeanor and face because I was supervising staff. I couldn't be emotional at work from that sense because I had to produce and function. However, I did have the support from other advocates the times when I had to go to court, because it seemed like they were always in court on the same days, but in different courthouses. So I would have to run from one courthouse to go to another courthouse. And thank goodness that they were family advocates at that time. So I tried to get therapy for my sons, and I was able to get them an appointment to go for, evaluation and for screening. And we sat and we talked to, a group. They had us in a circle, and we talked to the staff, the social workers at the agency. And so they said, okay, we'll get back to you and let you know who's going to work with your family. But prior to that, we were in the lobby and my sons were just acting out horribly. And I thought, what a better place for them to act out, because then you can see how much I need this support for my children and how much help they need. But to my dismay, when the workers saw the behaviors, what they said to my sons was, you don't have to be here if you don't want to be here. And I'm thinking, how can you say this? You see the behaviors, right? I can't control them really to this extent where I can get them to settle down and listen. And once the social worker said, you don't have to be here if you don't want to, they bolted through the door. So here I am running behind them like a crazy woman. Finally got them to come back inside. And so after we met with the workers, as I had said previously, they said, we'll get back in contact with you. Once we left the room, the office, and were going out, I realized I left my umbrella. So I had to go back to get my umbrella. And as I was walking down the hall to get my umbrella, they were discussing my family, my children, and saying how there's no way they could help them and that there's nothing they can do for them and so forth. And it was heartbreaking. And so I just stood in the doorway, and I didn't tell them that I worked for a family support program and that I worked in mental health, because at that point I got to see what the other families experienced when they were going for help. And, everyone was so apologetic. Oh, we're so sorry. So I get it when I see the notices up in places saying, do not talk about the families and, in open areas with the door open or whatever, because it's really traumatizing. And so I left feeling defeated that I would not be able to get assistance for my sons. And I'm like, I'm reaching out because I knew the behaviors of mental health because my brother had mental health issues. I knew my mother had mental health issues, and I could see some of the behaviors starting to surface with my children. And they said, well, we can't do anything for you until something happens. I said, but I'm trying to prevent something from happening. Well, in any case, they started getting into trouble in the neighborhood. They had joined gangs, and they were a part of a basketball team. They're fabulous in sports. The coach said, okay, they can play, but they can't come to practice or do any other activities. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Why is it okay for them to play, but they can't do any other activities? That's not fair to them. So needless to say, they didn't go back to that program. But, as I was working with the families, and I felt like I'm working with these families and they're succeeding, and my family, was still going through challenges every day. And so when I finally was able to, I got a youth group started. And what I did was I had my children come to the youth group. So this way I could keep track of them. Because going back and forth to court, I had a judge tell me that my children were acting out because I wasn't giving them proper supervision. And I said, I work. I'm a single parent and I work. I can't do any better. There are no school programs, after school programs for children in special ed. So the system, it seems like, is creating the opportunity for them to get in trouble and eventually get locked up. So my thing was, do I quit work? And not that I'm knocking anyone who needs public assistance to get where they have to go, but I'm like, do I give up my job and then stay home and then get on public assistance where you'll talk about me and criticize me like you do? And like I've heard parents talked about before. So I had to make that decision, and I decided to continue working to support my family. And what I realized is parents are blamed far too often for the mental wellness challenges, for the emotional behavioral challenges that sometimes they have no control over, and sometimes the very systems that we look to put our children into for help does more harm. Not always the case, but in many cases. And so, I really had a better insight with working with the families around these issues. So, when I think about it, the corporate counsel who should have been providing assistance and guidance had already thrown in the towel, just plead guilty. Oh, don't worry about it. The juvenile files will be locked up, but the juvenile files kept showing up every time we went to court, even as adults. So my sons are now 38 years old, and they have both been in and out of juvenile facilities. And it so happened that it seemed like every summer my sons would be locked up. And I was crying, why are my sons locked up every summer? But then when I took a moment to take a breather, I realized that the other children that a lot of the people they were hanging out with and some of the kids in the community would end up dead in the summer. It's different things going on, gang rivalry and, just accidents or just being locked up. And so I realized that perhaps that was a way of getting them off the streets when all of these things would be happening in the summertime. So I had to start looking at things differently. As a mother, I'm like, oh, my child, I wish my child wasn't here. I had a lot of shame, guilt, blame, and didn't even want to talk to my father, who's a Jamaican. So if anybody knows Jamaican parents, you know how this went off, about what was going on. And so finally I did, only to be what I felt judged and criticized. And I was like, look, if you can't help me, then I don't want to hear anything, because I don't need to be criticized. I don't need to be judged. I'm getting that from outsiders. But in any event, as time grew on, my sons kind of went through the school to prison pipeline. So juveniles, they went to juvenile facilities. I think I did everyone from New York City, Brooklyn, Bronx, all the way up to near Canada. OCFS has a program up there, the Adirondacks program. And so, when you're doing everything that you're trying to do and it just doesn't seem to be working, it's kind of hard to remain hopeful. However, I have seen the glimmer of light, because I remember detectives and the police telling me when they would talk to me about my sons, your sons are not bad people. They're making bad choices. And I think that gave me hope, because they would say, we know bad people and they're not doing those people. They say thank you, and they show that they were raised properly and have manners. So that kept my heart optimistic. And so today, I have a son. One of the twins was just released from federal prison last December after doing 7 years. And that's after doing, in and out the whole span. So he's out, and he's got a great job. He's been working on his job since, I want to say, February. He's got a promotion, and he's got another promotion. So now they promoted him to supervisor. He's taking care of his family. And my other son, who was sentenced to 24 years, is scheduled to come out on parole in 2027. But although my journey in parenting hasn't been a straight road, and it hasn't been an easy road, I think about when people say, there's no manual on parenting or how to be a parent. And what I've come to realize is that even if there was a manual, it might not fit my family, because each family has individualized needs. So when I think about that, I'm reminded that, okay, they might be able to give you some pointers. However, one size does not fit all. And I've learned not to be ashamed. So I've never criticized my sons or children. I've never belittled them. I've never called them out their name. I've never told them that they embarrass me. And I see how they are with their children. Like my son, even though he's incarcerated, he's still parents. And I see that they're bringing back what was put into them. So I remain hopeful. So although the journey hasn't gone the way I wanted it to go, I'm proud to say that one of my sons is out. The son who is in state prison, at this time, he's working on his associate's degree, and he is doing fabulous in school. And both his brother also was able to get his high school equivalency. And I know that had they been outside, they wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have done it because that's not the track they were on. So I'm thankful for the opportunity that the time was being utilized wisely by my son so that he is able to get his education. He's getting great grades on his essays. He's getting great reports. And the school that he's getting these classes from is Cornell University. Who could ask for more? It's an Ivy League school. So I'm thankful for that. So while I say that initially I was focusing on myself and how I felt when I was parenting them as children and going through, the different times of uncertainty, because, you can become a hostage, or at least I became a hostage on weekends. I wouldn't leave my house because I didn't know if I was going to get that call, right? And there was even a time when the police called me and wanted me to come get my son. And I told them, no, let him stay there. But they sent a car out to get me anyway. And so I had to take him home. But, I had to realize that it's not my journey, it's their journey. And I didn't want to lose sight that even though I'm doing everything I could to help them, it has to be their efforts at the end of the day. And that I can't lose sight of the light at the end of the tunnel. And so I remind them that they're great human beings, that I love them. And no matter how old they get, our children are always our babies. So I celebrate the good things and I keep it moving forward. And the journey continues no matter how old your children are. And I remain hopeful because there has been a generational shift. As I said before, I have 22 grandchildren and the oldest 3 are males. 2 of them are 22. One's going to be 21 next month. 20. One's going to be 21 next month. One's going to be 21 in January, and the other's going to be 18. And to this day, they have not had any involvement with the juvenile justice system or the criminal justice system. And by this stage in the game, my sons have been in and out of juvenile facilities since they were 14 years old. So I offer words of encouragement to any family member who is going through. Sometimes what seems like a bad thing is not so bad. sometimes we have to be separated, or our children have to be separated and be still for a moment. You know, I do worry about what happens on the inside, but I try not to focus there because it would make me lose my mind probably. But I cherish those moments that they seek my advice still, and that I can be encouragement and support for them. And I just look forward to my other son coming out, because like I said, you know, the journey is not the same for everyone. And there's times when I do trainings like parenting classes, anger management classes, or trauma and recovery classes. And there's a song that I like to tell people about. It says, "You don't know my story." Because people don't always look like what they've been through, right? So you don't know when someone goes home what they're experiencing, the heartbreak, the hurt, and the loneliness. Because it seems like when you need people the most, when you're going through it, sometimes people just don't want to be bothered because they have their own lives. But if you have just one person who can take that time and just be there with you, it makes the world of difference. So I tell the family members, and even the peer advocates, family advocates, youth advocates that's on this call, be encouraged, don't give up. And that as long as there's one person in the life of these families and this youth, it gives them something to hold on when they know that someone else believes in them. Thank you.
Euphemia, thank you so much. I told Euphemia that when she sent me her story, her written story, I cried. And it was tears of grief for Euphemia and her family, but tears of joy for what an amazing, resilient woman you are. So thank you so much for being willing to share today and be so transparent. And, you know, our hearts are with you, and our hearts will celebrate when your other son comes home.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to our final story for today. Sandy Bumpus is going to be sharing information and some of the things that have happened along her journey as she has been parenting. So Sandy, we're going to turn this over to you.
Well, thank you. And I'm really honored to be here sharing this story along with Euphemia and Tavos. Your stories are very compelling, and I'm just sitting here still processing what you all have shared. So thank you. I just to give a little bit of background, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Both my parents were from the East Coast, and the things that I know about my family are, you know, my mother grew up in a really a disadvantaged household. When she was 12, her parents divorced, and her mother really struggled a lot. And, you know, kids ended up in foster care for a period of time. My mother was the oldest of 7 kids, and had a lot of responsibilities laid on her shoulders because her mother was working and drinking and partying, and you know, it's a real struggle in her life. My father, on the other hand, grew up in a very wealthy family. His father was a car dealer in Buffalo, New York, and he was born 10 years after his next sibling down. So his mother had him when she was in her mid 40s, I believe. And so, you know, he had all the advantages that probably his brother and sister didn't have. And, you know, he was, privileged in a lot of ways. And the thing that I found out later in my life was that both parents suffered quite a bit of abuse. And so I share that because in my childhood, I remember feeling like, you know, my parents weren't there emotionally for me. And I'm one of 3 kids. I'm the middle child, and for whatever reason, I think I was probably more impacted by that than my brother and sister were. But I know all of us were impacted at some point by that. So I share that because when I, graduated from high school and, decided to move on and create my own life, I remember thinking that I didn't want to parent in the same way that my parents did. And I didn't want to live near my family because I didn't want those influences being on my kids. I just felt like that might be more harmful than good. And I don't know why I made that decision, but to me, I felt very strongly about it. So I'd always lived quite a ways away from my family. When I got married to my first husband, within a couple of years, we moved down to Vancouver, Washington, which is about 3 hours away from the Seattle area. So his family was in that region, but mine was quite a ways away. And I share that because as my story progresses, I realized one of the things I was really lacking in my own life was a support system that I really needed. So my ex-husband was struggling with his own mental illness, and he was really depressed and was debilitated by his depression. The main way it impacted him is he was unable to find work because he just was unable to get, to a place in his own mind where he felt like he could find something that made him feel worthwhile, or where others would feel he was worthwhile. And so, he stayed home a lot. And when our youngest or oldest was born, that worked out pretty well in terms of childcare. But as our experience moved and as the kids got older, that was more challenging. And his mental health issues got a lot more challenging as well. And there, we didn't know about NAMI. We didn't know about other supports for mental illness, much like what Tava was saying. There just didn't really seem to be any help. And so for me, I just at one point felt that in order to keep my kids safe and to feel emotionally safe myself, I needed to leave that relationship. And that was really hard on my kids. So, but what I want to share is some of what, happened in our story along the way, and what the journey was like as a parent trying to navigate through, getting help and resources that we needed. So I want to share that when Samantha was 22 months old, Samantha is my oldest, and she's the one who had many, many mental health challenges and socially emotional, not just mental health, but social challenges as well from a very young age. And just to give you a glimpse of what that looked like when she was around 2 years old, she loved stories, and we would read stories to her all the time. And one of her favorite books was Yertle the Turtle by Dr. Seuss. And she had to have that story read to her every night. And I remember one night I was feeling kind of tired, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just skip this one page and I can get through it more quickly. Nope, that was not going to work. That what I didn't realize is that she had memorized every word in the whole story. and so she knew that I had skipped a page. And not only that, but she wanted to go back, and she had a very big temper tantrum to the point where she was really inconsolable. Now, at 2 years old, Samantha did not know how to read, and I knew that. And so there was something about her response that was surprising to me. So the next time I went to the pediatrician, I asked, should I be worried about this? And the pediatrician said he didn't really think there was anything to worry about, and just said, she'll just be able to teach her sister how to read someday. So that's a good thing. And her sister was just about 4 weeks old at that time. So that seemed like a relief to me and a gift to know that there was nothing to worry about. But these type of behaviors, what I would call unfamiliar or odd, continued. I remember when she was about 5 years old, she would be sitting at the kitchen table trying to draw a picture of a bug that she saw on a poster. And she would just, again, scream and, I mean, uncontrollably. And there was no way to help her know that it was okay that she couldn't make that picture look exactly like that bug on the poster. She wasn't having it. And so these bouts of, frustration and sadness for her were, pretty significant. It wasn't just, a few minutes. It was, took over a lot of time, and she needed a lot of consoling. She struggled with her sister, had anything to say. And this sounds really odd to say as a parent, but Samantha was also just smart to the point where she knew everything about dinosaurs. She knew everything about birds. I mean, if she had something she was interested in, she would read about it. When she learned how to read, she could read just about anything. And she just developed this incredible knowledge of all these things. So on the way home from daycare or school, she would be talking about what she knew about this dinosaur or that bird or whatever the topic was. And she would not stop talking. And, even at times when she, took a breath, I would use that as an opportunity to talk to her sister. And she would, again, have this really strong reaction. I wasn't done talking, and, this is something that happened every day. This was not a once in a while kind of situation. And we encourage our kids to talk, and we wanted them to explore the things that they were interested in. So we always encouraged all of that. But it was really challenging because eventually I realized that, my youngest daughter, Ashley, was feeling really cheated by this behavior that was happening. And the other sad part to me is that Samantha was really suffering despite everything that we did to try to help her. And I didn't know how to help that. And so, we really, at first I thought it was actually because of the divorce that we went through that, caused some of this behavior to happen as she got older. But, it continued on for, throughout her childhood, pretty much. I think what made matters worse is that Samantha was bullied a lot in the beginning, starting in about 3rd or 4th grade and throughout all of her school years. And so this led to more aggressive behavior on her part that usually led to school suspensions. I remember she had a 3rd grade teacher who thought the world of her, but she was really concerned about Samantha, and she casually mentioned to me, I'm really concerned about Samantha, about her behavior and some of the things that she's doing. And I didn't understand why the teacher was concerned about some of these behaviors initially, because I wasn't seeing those same behaviors at home. And an example of that is she would get down on the floor in the classroom and crawl around acting like an animal. And she would not come up to the table and read, with the rest of the class. She didn't want to be doing what the rest of the class was doing. And so I actually asked if the school counselor would videotape Samantha in class so I could see what was going on. And by using that videotape and just hearing some other things that were happening, I was able to get an appointment with a child psychiatrist to see, is there a diagnosis? One of the things I'm leaving out is before that, Samantha had run away from a daycare because one of the kids was bullying her. And she went home and she ran to the toy store. She ran home to get her piggy bank, went to the toy store and bought herself a toy. But because I wasn't there, there was no obvious parent around. The store called the Children's Services Division, and I came home that evening and had a business card on my door from the child welfare system saying, hey, we've got your kiddo, please call us. And of course, I got home after 5 o'clock and there was no way to talk to anybody at DHS. And then they referred me to a phone number that was actually juvenile detention. So I was really distraught and upset and, you know, not understanding what was going on, and had to go to court the next day to really explain why was my child at home. In that particular time, you know, my kids are about the same age as Euphemia's, and so there were no cell phones then. So there was no way anybody could contact me. And of course, I didn't know what was happening either. I just expected she was in her childcare, as she usually was. So anyway, the daycare did get in a lot of trouble over that because they didn't call child welfare either to report that she had run away. And when I went to court the next day, I think I did feel like the court and the DHS worker we were assigned to were compassionate toward the situation, and they knew something was wrong as well. And so there was a psychiatric evaluation that was done because they really wanted to make sure she was getting some help. So with that information and then the videotape and all the history that was leading up to this, Samantha was able to get a diagnosis. And as a result of that, we were able to get her into some special education services. But none of that really helped that much. We tried medications and those didn't really help that much either. And so the bullying, because other kids were noticing there was all these odd things about her as well. She got a lot of bullying and teasing in school, and she couldn't tolerate that. And so every day she would come home and she would say, I wish I were dead, or I want to kill myself, and over and over and over again. So all these other behaviors that I talked about earlier were still happening. And then this also was happening. And with my daughter, Ashley, being the younger one, also being a part of all of this, because I was a single parent and I honestly did not know what to do. I didn't know there were resources out there, or, you know, when I found out about resources, they weren't the right ones, or we didn't qualify for those, or we were not eligible. So I spent many nights crying and worrying if I could even keep her alive. I remember that, thinking, my job is to keep this child alive. And then I remember always thinking through all these challenges that the thing that was most important to me was my kids to know that they were loved and cared for, and that we, encouraged them to be who they wanted to be, and that was a challenge with these experiences going on. The school administrators would talk about how they weren't sure if they could continue to keep Samantha in school given her behaviors. However, nobody did anything about the students who bullied her, and bullying seemed like such a mild description of what it was that she was enduring, because to her it really felt like torture. I remember demanding that the school do something to address the bullying and hold kids accountable for their behavior. But the response I got most of the time was, well, this is middle school, or this is high school. This is what kids do. It's normal. She's just going to have to get used to it. And I remember when I remarried right around the time that my kids were in junior and high school, and my husband had a friend who was a teacher, and he, we asked him, what can we do? And the teacher said, then unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do, and unless your child becomes dangerous toward him, herself, or somebody else. So I would recite research that I was looking up information all the time to see what are other schools doing about bullying. And I remember seeing an article about a school in the Seattle area that actually developed an anti-bullying program. And I cut out that article and I brought it to school. I gave it to the principal and I said, this is what you guys need. And it was pretty much ignored. So I know that has been the thing that has been the hardest for Samantha. And finally, there was a day that came when Samantha lashed out, and she had had enough. This was right around a time where I'd heard she was walking down the hall at a school that had two floors. She was walking by a stairwell, and there was a kid at the top of the stairwell who actually dropped a full can of pop on her head from the second floor. And it's still really hard for me to, talk about that, because it just seems cruel on so many levels. So she lashed out right around that time, and she said, what happened at Columbine can happen here. So of course she was expelled from school, and at that point she was admitted to a psychiatric day treatment program. So that day treatment program, I credit with saving her life. I also credit the school-based health services and mental health program with saving her life. But the story is really too familiar, I think, for a lot of our kids and families. And one of the things that happened at the day treatment program is that there was a therapist there who we all thought was great. He was wonderful. And toward the end of her time at the day treatment program, the therapist, we were in family therapy together, and we never knew what he was going to talk about, but we didn't ever worry about it. But this time he said, well, we're trying to figure out if Samantha is one of those kids who's going to go on and be successful and go to school and make something out of her life, or whether she's going to be this other type of person who's going to, live on Social Security disability and struggle and, struggle around. And their conclusion was that she was going to be the latter, that she was going to be the one living on Social Security disability. And I was shocked. I was livid. And of course, that's what Samantha had learned to think of herself. She always thought about the fact that she felt worthless to just about everybody, except us. Her family. We never felt that way, but it felt like we were fighting such a strong undercurrent around all these challenges. So one of the things I want to say is I feel like we live in a culture today where we normalize these things that happen to our kids. And it is really curious to me. I think the mental health system, when I hear about kids going into residential care, or even some of the examples that were shared by Euphemia and Tavos today, I feel like what we see in the system today is reflective of those things that are easy to do. What I really wish and what I really would hope for and wish I had myself when I was going through this is a program that would allow kids to talk about what they're going through. They give them a chance to get it out, let them grieve, let them cry, and give them a space to heal and recover, and then treat them as if that's the bold thing to do, rather than labeling them as weak. Because we have a society that seems to think that having mental illness and reacting to it, reacting to how people treat you, is weak. It's the harder thing to do the right thing. And I think too many of our children and youth live a lifetime of mental illness because we can't seem to do the right thing. And I don't mean we as in families. I mean we as in a culture, as a society of helping people with mental illness. So we have a long way to go. I know there's nothing more important than claiming our stories. In Oregon, over the past few months, we have had public listening sessions for families with over 170 families who have shared their stories with us to date. We're gathering these stories and sharing family experiences with our statewide Children's Systemic Care Advisory Council because our state is in trouble right now. Our children's behavioral health system is collapsing. And a lot of it is as the result of the pandemic. And families and youth are getting caught in the middle of this, and they are getting no help. What families are having to go through, it's no different. In some cases, it's a lot worse than what we had to go through. And so I don't think that there's any comparison in terms of how painful these stories are, regardless of what any of us have been through. They're all important, and we all need to be telling our stories. And I feel like we need to keep telling these stories until we actually see the difference that it is making. I know a lot of times I sit on policy committees in Oregon where people are thankful for these stories and they're genuinely interested in changing the system. But I can tell you, the conversations we're having are the same conversations we've always been having. And why can't we seem to build a better system for our kids and families? So I'm making a commitment to my organization and to my state and to families, really, that we're not going to stop telling stories until the stories change. So that's what I have to share today. Thank you very much.
Sandy, thank you so much. I know for each of you that it's important to tell your stories, but it also, it has an emotional toll, and we are so appreciative for these. We've got just a few minutes for a couple of questions. So if we could go back to a spotlight of all four of us, that would be great. And I'm just going to get your thoughts and your perspectives on a couple of things before we end here today. So my first question, and this is for all of you, so I please just jump in. In thinking about your journey as you've presented it here today, what is a word you would use to describe this journey? And why do you pick that word? Who wants to go first?
Are you asking just anyone?
No, this is for the panelists.
Well, I'll start just by saying I can say there's two words. And number one, this journey is hell, and it's hard on families, and you know, but it's also a blessing in many ways. And for me, I feel like I wouldn't be who I am right now if it weren't for this experience in my life. It has taught me a lot about myself. So to me, that's what I would say.
I would say that it's a very humbling experience, because sometimes we think that there are divides. Well, there are certain divides between people because of economics and socioeconomic status, or ethnic group, race, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, these things can happen to anyone. Although in some communities, like the community I belong to, people of color, sometimes the interactions with the law is a little different. But, you know, it just helps you to stay focused and to not be judgmental of people. For example, we work with a lot of people that come in for anger management, and we work with a lot of people that come in for parenting classes, but you don't know their story. You don't know how they got to that point. What was the parenting like for them when they were growing up, right? Because oftentimes they don't even know their parents' backstory, right? So they're just getting the repercussions of what their parent may have experienced, or sometimes we don't even know the circumstance of the birth of the child that, you know, that they're in parenting class for or anger management for, you know? So I think it just helps to look at things with a wide lens. Like, there's no cookie cutter approach. There's no one size fits all. There's no one way of doing things, and everybody people are not going to do things the same way. And to really, you know, stand by what we say and meet people where they're at. So we have to have a judge-free zone. We have to have a criticism-free zone, so that people can evolve and learn new ways of interacting with their families, their personal families, and the families that we provide services to. And I think that's where people feel welcomed, and they're open to sharing whatever's going on in their life. Because sometimes people in interpersonal violent relationships, and you don't know it because they don't know who they can trust. And then, you know, you talk to them, and then they say, okay, I could trust this person. And then they share. right? And then you could help support them and to make the decisions that are necessary for their life based on when they're ready.
For me, I think that I'm gonna do like Sandy, use two words. For me, my journey will be a gift, an opportunity. And what I think about a gift is like a birthday gift, right? Could be the gift that you love and you embrace, or could be a gift that you put in the closet and ignore it. And the opportunity could be an opportunity to do nothing, to complain and feel that we are a victim, or use that opportunity to grow and to move forward and empower others and work together to look for different results that people they don't have to go through the same thing that we did.
Right. Okay, the next question. Think for just a moment. If you had the opportunity to speak to your younger self, what is the one absolute piece of advice you would give that person? Euphemia?
I would tell her to hang in there. It's going to get better, because I tried to take my life when I was 13. And had I accomplished that, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have my children, to see my grandchildren, my great-grandchild, and to interact with so many of you and even the families that we work with. That it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better.
That's right.
Yeah.
For me, would it be do things even though you are afraid? Fear doesn't stop me. And it's okay to do things with fear and frustration. At the end of the day, we're going to see the light in the tunnel. I know that, but a lot of people, as soon as we are afraid, we stop. So I will say myself, keep going, Tabo, keep it up, keep going.
I would also say, surround yourself with people people who love and care about you. And that's, I couldn't say that, when you go through this experience, you just need support. You need a strong support system. So look for those people in your life and surround yourself with them.
Right. Now, as you know, we are down to about our last 5 minutes, but I have one more very important question, because we have a lot of parents on this call today. So this is one of our bigger audiences and a chance to speak to them. I'm going to ask each of you to, as succinctly as you can, give those parents some advice. What advice would you give those parents, no matter where they are on their journey?
What I would say is, all you can do is your best, and that it's okay to reach out. Don't be ashamed to say, I need extra support and I need some help. And that all things are possible. And what looks like it's not going to be good can turn around and be something fabulous.
Great advice.
I will tell the parents, trust yourself. Allow the love to move you forward. Love is the most important thing in life. And just to remind everybody that life is too short. We just experienced a pandemic that nobody was ready for that. Life is too short. So don't wait until tomorrow and tomorrow. Do whatever you need to do it today, and do it with love.
Wonderful.
And I would say, stay strong, and don't let anybody tell you that you are a failure or that you are a bad parent. Don't listen to that, because you have to believe in yourself. And so continue to think about that believing in yourself, and then all the other things that were mentioned here as well.
This has been a tremendous way to start our conference. I know it's a different style than we have usually done, but it's so powerful to have your stories, to get us started, to set our intention for this conference, and to let some other parents know that you have traveled this journey and it works. You can do it. You just have to stay with it. Your advice is wonderful. Now, many of you are putting comments in the chats. I wish we could do a standing ovation, but since we aren't able to do that, please feel free to put your comments in the chat. We will get these to our presenters because I think they will be very interested in seeing what you have to say. Sandy, Tavo, Euphemia, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and for all of us who are here today. Thank you for sharing your stories, being willing to be so vulnerable and so transparent. This is going to be an amazing, amazing experience for everyone who's been a part of it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Lachelle, I'd ask you to pull up the last slide, please. So we are going to take a 15-minute mental health break. Get up, stretch, grab something to eat or drink. Our next sessions will begin in 15 minutes. We have an amazing day planned for you. Thanks so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for your participation in the chat. It means so much to us. And we will see you in other sessions as we move forward.